was going to die. He knew this with the same certainty that he knew his own name. The cold had already taken the feeling from his fingers. His leg was broken in 3 places. The oxygen meter on his helmet showed 4% remaining, and it was dropping fast. He lay in the wreckage of his scout ship on a moon that did not even have a proper name, just a number, Epsilon 4, a frozen rock at the edge of explored space. His mission had been simple: fly in, scan the surface, fly out, but his engine had failed. The crash had destroyed his distress beacon. No one was coming for him. The stars above were beautiful. Had never noticed how many there were before. Perhaps it was easier to see them when you were dying. He thought about his mother back on Earth. She would cry when she received the news. He thought about his younger sister, who had just started university. He thought about the dog he had promised to adopt when he returned from this deployment. He would never see any of them again. The cold crept deeper into his bones. His breathing became shallow. 4% oxygen became 3%. He closed his eyes and waited for the end. That was when he heard the sound. A soft crunch of footsteps on frozen ground. Something was moving toward him, forced his eyes open. His vision was blurry, but he could see a shape approaching through the darkness. It was small, thin, not human. Fear cut through the fog in his mind. He did not know what species lived on this moon. He did not know if they were friendly. His hand moved slowly, painfully, toward the sidearm at his belt. Every movement cost him precious oxygen, but if something was going to eat him, he would not die without a fight. The figure came closer, raised his gun with a shaking hand. The alien stopped. It was shorter than him, perhaps reaching his chest if he were standing. Its skin was pale blue, almost white, like fresh snow. Large eyes looked at him with an expression he could not read. It had thin limbs and delicate fingers. It wore simple clothing in soft colors. It did not look dangerous. It looked fragile, breakable, like something that would shatter if you touched it too hard. But had been trained to fear what he did not understand. His finger found the trigger. The alien did not run. It did not attack. It simply knelt beside him in the frozen dirt and gently pushed the gun away from its face. Its touch was warm, surprisingly warm. Then it began to work. Watched in confusion as the alien opened a small bag and pulled out tools he did not recognize. It examined his broken leg with careful hands. It looked at the oxygen meter on his helmet. It made a small sound, something like a sigh, and then it did something that made his heart stop. It removed a breathing device from its own suit and connected it to his helmet. Fresh oxygen flooded his lungs, gasped as the fog in his mind began to clear. He stared at the alien in disbelief. It was sharing its own air supply with him. It was giving away its own life to save a stranger. Why? He tried to ask, but his voice was too weak. The alien did not seem to need an answer anyway. It was already focused on his leg, using materials from its own ship to create a splint. Its movements were gentle but precise. This creature knew how to heal. The next 3 days blurred together for. He drifted in and out of consciousness. Sometimes he woke to find the alien beside him, checking his wounds, adjusting his oxygen, feeding him small amounts of nutrient paste from its own supplies. Sometimes he woke to find it sleeping nearby, curled up in the cold without complaint. On the 2nd day, his fever broke. He was clear-headed enough to really look at his rescuer for the first time. "Who are you?" he asked. The alien tilted its head. "I am Laura," she said. Her voice was soft and musical, like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "I am." Had never heard of the. They must be a minor species, one of the thousands that existed on the edges of galactic society. He tried to sit up, but pain shot through his leg. "Do not move," Laura said firmly. "Your bone is not yet stable." "How did you find me?" "I was collecting plant samples on the other side of this moon. I saw your ship fall from the sky." She paused. "I almost did not come. My people have been told that humans are dangerous, violent, unpredictable." remembered pointing his gun at her face. Shame burned in his chest. "But you came anyway," he said quietly. Laura nodded. "You were hurt. I could not leave you to die alone. You shared your oxygen with me. You could have died." "Yes," she agreed simply, "but you would have died first." Did not know what to say. In his entire military career, he had never encountered anything like this. This small, fragile creature had risked everything to save a stranger from a species she had been warned was dangerous. She had asked for nothing in return. She had expected nothing. "My people will come looking for me," he said. "I had a scheduled check-in. When I missed it, they will have sent a search party." Laura nodded again. "I sent a signal using parts from both our ships. It was difficult. Your technology is very different from ours, but I believe it worked." She had rebuilt his distress beacon. She had called for help. She had done everything possible to save him. "Why?" asked again, and this time his voice was strong enough for her to hear. Laura looked at him with those large, gentle eyes. "Because you are a living being," she said. "And living beings should not die alone in the cold if someone can help them. This is what my people believe. This is what I believe." On the third day, the human rescue ship arrived. Captain Minu led the search team personally. He found sitting up, his leg properly splinted, his vital signs stable, and beside him sat a small blue alien who had not slept in 2 days because she was worried his fever might return. Minu stared at the scene in disbelief. "Sergeant, report." "Sir," his voice was rough but steady. "My ship crashed. My beacon was destroyed. I would have died within the hour, but this found me. She saved my life. She shared her own oxygen. She rebuilt my beacon. She kept me alive for 3 days with her own supplies." Minu looked at Laura. The looked back at him calmly. She did not seem afraid of the armed soldiers surrounding her. "Is this true?" Minu asked. "Yes," Laura said simply. "Why would you do this?" Laura tilted her head again as if the question confused her. "He was dying," she said. "I could help. Is there another reason needed?" Minu had no answer to that. As the medical team prepared to move to the rescue ship, he grabbed Laura's hand. Her skin was warm and soft, like silk that had been left in the sun. "I owe you my life," he said. "I will never forget this. My people will never forget this." Laura smiled. It was a gentle expression that transformed her entire face. "I did not save you for reward," she said. "I saved you because you were dying. Please do not feel you owe me anything." But shook his head. "Where I come from," he said, "when someone saves your life, you owe them a debt that can never be repaid, and humans always pay their debts." Laura did not understand what he meant. She would not understand for a long time. But the galaxy would learn. 6 months had passed since the frozen moon. Stood on his own 2 legs again, though his left one still ached when the weather changed. The doctors said the ache would fade with time. Was not sure he wanted it to. The pain reminded him of what had happened. It reminded him of a small blue alien who had given him her own oxygen so that he might live. He had told his story to everyone who would listen, first to his commanding officers, then to the military review board, then to the journalists who had somehow learned about the rescue. The story spread across Earth like fire through dry grass. People wanted to know about the alien who had saved the human soldier. They wanted to know about the... Dr. Wu was the one who found the answers. She was Earth's leading expert on alien cultures, a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind. She had spent her entire career studying the species that humanity had encountered among the stars, but she had never heard of the until crashed on Epsilon 4. She found them in the old records. There were a species that had achieved space travel long before humanity had discovered fire. They were ancient, they were peaceful, and they were completely unremarkable by galactic standards. They had no army, they had no weapons, they had no valuable resources on there. They were herbivores who had evolved on a gentle planet where the greatest threat was a particularly aggressive type of flower. They had developed advanced healing abilities because their bodies were fragile and their environment was kind. The galaxy had forgotten about them centuries ago. They existed on the edges of known space, ignored by the great empires and the powerful federations. They traded their healing services for basic supplies. They never caused trouble. They never asked for help. Doctor presented her findings to the United Earth Council. The council chambers were full that day. Everyone wanted to hear about the "They are dying," said. Her voice was calm, but her words carried weight. Not from war, not from disease. They are dying from neglect. The galaxy has no use for a peaceful species with no military power. They are pushed further and further to the edges. Their population has dropped by 40% in the last 200 years. The council members shifted in their seats. This was not what they had expected to hear. And yet, continued, when one of their people found a dying human soldier, she did not hesitate. She did not ask what she would gain. She did not calculate the risks. She simply helped because she could. This is who they are. This is what they believe. Admiral Park stood up. She was the commander of Earth's interstellar fleet, a woman who had spent 40 years defending humanity among the stars. Her hair was gray now, but her eyes were still fierce. "I have a proposal," she said. "I move that the United Earth Council officially recognize the people as protected friends of humanity. Any act of aggression against them will be considered an act of aggression against Earth itself." The chamber erupted in noise. Some voices supported the proposal. Others questioned it. What did humanity owe to a species they had never met? What right did Earth have to make such a declaration? What would the other galactic powers think? Admiral waited for the noise to die down. Then she spoke again. "Let me tell you something about humanity," she said. "We are young in this galaxy. We have only been among the stars for a few generations. The other species look at us and see children. They see us as primitive and loud and emotional. They think we are weak because we care too much." She paused and looked around the chamber. "But that caring is not weakness. It is our greatest strength. When someone shows us kindness, we remember it. When someone helps us in our darkest hour, we do not forget. A girl saved one of our soldiers because she believed that living beings should not die alone. She asked for nothing in return. She expected nothing. And now I am asking you, what kind of species would we be if we did nothing for her people?" The vote was held 3 days later. It was unanimous. Resolution 7721 passed without a single voice against it. They were now under the protection of humanity. Requested a transfer that same week. He wanted to serve as a military liaison on the. He wanted to see Laura again. He wanted to thank her properly for what she had done. Admiral called him to her office before approving the transfer. "Do you understand what you are asking for?" she said. "This is not a military posting. There is no glory in it, no advancement. You will spend your days on a quiet planet among peaceful aliens who have no need for soldiers." Nodded. "I understand, Admiral." "Then why do you want this?" Thought about the question carefully. He thought about the cold moon and the broken leg and the oxygen meter dropping toward zero. He thought about the small blue hand that had pushed his gun away and then saved his life. "That girl did not know me," he said. "She had been told that humans were dangerous. She had every reason to leave me there to die, but she came anyway. She risked her own life to save a stranger, and now her people are out there, alone and forgotten, and no one in the galaxy cares about them." He straightened his shoulders and looked the Admiral in the eye. "I care," he said, "and I think it is time someone showed them that they are not alone anymore." Admiral studied him for a long moment. Then she smiled just slightly. "Good answer, Sergeant. Your transfer is approved." 3 weeks later arrived on. The planet was beautiful. Soft green fields stretched in every direction. The sky was a gentle purple color, filled with clouds that looked like cotton. The air smelled sweet, like flowers after rain. Everything about this world was peaceful and calm and kind. Laura was waiting for him at the landing site. She looked exactly as he remembered her. Small and blue and fragile, with those large eyes that seemed to see right through him. "You came back," she said. There was surprise in her voice. "I told you I would," replied. "Humans keep their promises." "But why? Your injury is healed. You owe me nothing." Shook his head. "I owe you everything, and now my entire species owes you everything. We passed a resolution. Your people are under our protection now." Laura stared at him. She did not seem to understand. "Protection from what?" she asked. "We have no enemies. We have nothing worth taking." Thought about what Doctor had said. They were dying from neglect. They could not imagine that anyone would want to hurt them because no one ever had. "The galaxy is not always kind," he said gently, "but Earth will be kind to you, I promise." Elder, the leader of the council, met with later that day. He was his blue skin faded almost to gray, his movements slow and careful. "We do not understand your people," Elder said. "Laura saved one soldier, one life, and your entire species responds by declaring us protected. This does not make sense by any calculation we understand." Smiled. "That is because you are calculating it wrong," he said. "We do not measure kindness by logic, we measure it by feeling. And what Laura did made every human on Earth feel something. She made us feel grateful. She made us feel hopeful. She made us believe that there is goodness in this galaxy, even in the darkest places." Elder was silent for a long time. "Your species is very strange," he said finally. "Yes," agreed. "We are, but we are also loyal, and now you have our loyalty for as long as Earth exists." The old looked at the human soldier standing in his council chamber. This young man had traveled across the stars to keep a promise that no one had asked him to make. His people had declared protection for a species they had never met, simply because one of them had been kind. "Perhaps," Elder said quietly, "the galaxy has underestimated humanity." Smile widened. "Yes," he said, "they have, and someday they will learn." 3 years had passed since arrived on. He had grown to love this quiet world and its gentle people. He had learned their language, eaten their food, celebrated their festivals. He had become something between a soldier and a diplomat and a friend. Laura had become his closest companion. She had taught him about healing arts, about their philosophy of unconditional kindness, about their belief that all living things were connected by an invisible thread. In return, had taught her about Earth, about its oceans and mountains and cities, about human music and art and stories, about a species that felt everything deeply and forgot nothing. It was a peaceful life, had almost forgotten what war felt like. Then the came. He heard about them first from the news channels that connected to the rest of the galaxy. The Empire was expanding. They had conquered 3 systems in the past year alone. Their armies were vast and their methods were brutal. They stripped planets of resources and enslaved populations. They showed no mercy and asked for none. The galaxy trembled before them, but no one dared to intervene. They were too powerful. Their fleet was too large. The great empires and federations looked away and pretended not to see. Watched the news reports with growing unease. They were moving closer to space. It might mean nothing. There was nothing on worth taking, but something in his gut told him that peace was ending. He was right. The message arrived on a cold morning. Every communication device on received it at the same time. The face that appeared on the screen was hard and cruel, with gray skin and eyes like black stones. This was Warlord, Supreme Commander of the Empire. "People have said," his voice was like grinding metal, "we have studied your species, we have discovered your value. Your healing abilities will serve the Empire well. You will extend our lives. You will repair our soldiers. You will become the living medicine of the..." He paused and smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. You have one cycle to surrender. Open your borders, accept our occupation. Do this and you will live. Resist, and we will burn your world to ash and take what we want from the ruins. The message ended. Silence fell over like a heavy blanket. Found Laura in her healing center, surrounded by her patients. Her hands were shaking. Her large eyes were filled with something he had never seen in them before: fear. They want to make us slaves, she whispered. They want to use us like tools. That will not happen, said firmly. How can you stop them? We have no army, we have no weapons, we cannot fight. Took her hands in his. They were so small, so delicate, he could feel them trembling. You cannot fight, he agreed, but I know people who can. The emergency meeting of the council lasted for hours. Elder sat at the head of the table, his old face lined with worry. Around him sat the other council members, each one more frightened than the last. We must surrender, said one. There is no other choice. We must flee, said another. Perhaps we can hide on some forgotten world. We must accept our fate, said a third. Perhaps they will treat us fairly if we do not resist. Listen to all of this with growing frustration. These gentle people had no concept of how to deal with monsters like the. They could not imagine that some beings in the galaxy were simply evil, simply cruel, simply hungry for power. There is another option, he said when the council finally fell silent. Elder looked at him. What option? Call Earth. The council members exchanged confused glances. They knew about humanity's protection resolution, of course, but that was just words on a document, a gesture of goodwill. Surely the humans did not mean to actually fight for them. The Empire is the most powerful force in this part of the galaxy, Elder said slowly. Earth is a young species with a small fleet. They would be destroyed if they challenged the Empire. You do not know humans, replied. He sent the message that same day. Priority 1, directly to Admiral Park on Earth. He included all the information about the ultimatum, about the threat to the people, about the timeline they faced. Then he waited. The response came 12 hours later, not from the Admiral, but from Dr. Wu. She appeared on his screen with eyes that were red from lack of sleep. The Assembly is meeting right now, she said. The Admiral is presenting the situation. You should know that the debate is intense. Some people are arguing that this is not our fight, that we should not risk human lives for an alien species. His heart sank. And what do you think? Smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was something fierce in it. I think those people are about to learn what it means to be human, she said. On Earth, Admiral Park stood before the United Earth Assembly. She was not wearing her dress uniform. She was wearing combat armor. The message was clear. 3 years ago, she began, we passed Resolution 7721. We declared the people to be protected friends of humanity. We said that any attack on them would be considered an attack on us. Now the Empire has threatened to enslave them or destroy them. The question before this assembly is simple. Did we mean what we said? A voice called out from the crowd. They have 1,000 ships. We have less than 200. This is suicide. Perhaps, agreed. War is always dangerous, but I ask you to consider something. Why did we pass that resolution in the first place? Because a girl saved one of our soldiers, because she risked her life for a stranger, because she showed us that kindness still exists in this cold galaxy. She paused and looked around the chamber. If we abandon them now, we prove that our words are worthless. We prove that our protection means nothing. We prove that humanity will make promises it does not keep. And we prove that kindness is not worth protecting. Another voice, but the cost, think of the lives we will lose. Nodded slowly. I have thought about it. Every night since I received the report, I have thought about the soldiers who will die, the families who will be broken, the price we will pay. Her voice hardened. But I have also thought about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. One where the strong prey on the weak and no one lifts a finger to help. One where kindness is rewarded with abandonment. One where our children grow up knowing that their parents turned their backs on the innocent. She straightened her shoulders. I will not live in that galaxy, and I do not believe humanity wants to either. The vote was held immediately. The debate had lasted for hours, but in the end it was not close. Humanity had made a promise. Humanity would keep it. The declaration was broadcast across the galaxy. To Warlord and the Empire, the people are under the protection of Earth. Any attack on their world will be met with the full force of human military response. You have been warned. Laura watched the broadcast with tears streaming down her face. She did not understand why humans would do this. She could not comprehend a species that would go to war for strangers. Stood beside her and watched the human fleet beginning to mobilize. Ships that had been scattered across Earth's territories were now converging. Soldiers were being pulled from leave. Factories were shifting to wartime production. They are really coming, Laura whispered. Your people are really coming to fight for us. Of course they are, said. You saved one of us. That makes you family now, and humans do not abandon family. Far away in the heart of space, Warlord received the human declaration. He read it once, then laughed. The humans think they can challenge us, he said to General, his chief strategist. They are children playing with fire. We will crush them and take the anyway. General nodded, but there was something uncertain in his eyes. He had studied humans. He had read reports about their history, their wars, their persistence. My lord, he said carefully, perhaps we should not underestimate them. Waved his hand dismissively. Prepare the fleet. We will destroy the humans first, then claim our prize. He did not notice the way General frowned. He did not see the doubt that flickered in his general's eyes. The storm was coming, and they had no idea what they had awakened. The galaxy watched in disbelief. News of Earth's declaration spread from system to system, carried by traders and diplomats and spies. A young species, barely a few generations into space travel, had just challenged the most powerful empire in the known universe. Most species thought it was suicide. They had conquered hundreds of worlds. Their fleet numbered in the thousands. Their soldiers were bred for war, enhanced with technology, fearless and brutal. What could humanity possibly do against such power? Warlord thought the same thing. He gave the order to destroy the human fleet and claim. He expected it to be over within days. He was wrong. The first battle happened at Theta 9, a supply station at the edge of their territory. General had positioned 50 ships there, expecting to intercept any human scouts. Instead, Captain Minu arrived with the First Response Division, 100 ships moving in perfect formation. They were confident. They had faced many enemies before. They opened fire, expecting the humans to scatter. The humans did not scatter. They accelerated. Minu's voice crackled across the communication channels. All ships engage, no retreat, no surrender. Show them what humanity is made of. The battle lasted 6 hours. It should have been a victory. They had better technology, better training, better weapons. But something was wrong. The humans were not fighting the way enemies were supposed to fight. They did not pull back when they took damage. They pressed forward. They rammed ships with their own burning vessels. They boarded enemy cruisers with small teams of soldiers who fought like demons in the corridors. They took wounds that should have killed them and kept fighting anyway. When it was over, Theta 9 had fallen. 43 ships were destroyed. The survivors sent a single message back to General. They fought like they had nothing to lose. They fought like they were already dead. Read the message 3 times. Then he began to research humanity more carefully. What he found disturbed him. Humans were not like other species. They had evolved as persistent predators on a harsh world. They did not have claws or fangs or armor. They did not have venom or special abilities. What they had was something more dangerous. They did not stop. When humans hunted, they chased their prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. When humans faced obstacles, they found ways around them, over them, through them. When humans believed in something, they would die for it without hesitation. Brought his findings to Warlord. The Warlord dismissed them. They won one battle, said, we will crush them in the next. The next battle was at Station. 200 ships against 150 human vessels. They had the advantage. They lost. The humans used tactics no one had ever seen before. They attacked in waves, retreating just far enough to draw the out of position, then striking from unexpected angles. They coordinated with a precision that seemed impossible, and when things went wrong, they adapted. They changed plans on the fly, turning disasters into opportunities. One human ship, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, deliberately crashed into the command vessel. The crew had evacuated to escape pods just before impact. The command vessel was destroyed. The human crew survived. They sacrificed their ships to save their people, reported. But they will also sacrifice themselves to win battles. I do not understand the pattern. There is no pattern, a captured human soldier told him later during interrogation. We fight for each other. We fight because it is the right thing to do. Logic has nothing to do with it. Back on Earth, Admiral Park directed the war from the Central Command Station. She had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were bloodshot and her hands shook from too much coffee, but her voice was steady as she gave orders. They are regrouping at the system, her tactical officer reported. They are calling in reinforcements from their core territories. How many ships? 800 at least, maybe more. The room fell silent. 800 ships. Humanity's entire active fleet numbered less than 300. Even with their tactical advantages, these odds were impossible. Admiral, someone said quietly, we cannot win a direct battle against that force. Nodded, I know, so we will not fight a direct battle. We will make them bleed for every light year. We will hit their supply lines, destroy their communication relays, attack their bases and disappear before they can respond. We will make this war so costly that they will wish they had never heard of humanity. That could take years, Admiral. Then it takes years. I told them we would protect them. I did not say it would be easy. The war spread across a dozen systems. Human ships appeared and vanished like ghosts. Convoys were ambushed. Outposts were raided. Soldiers began to fear the dark between the stars. On coordinated with the human forces while also preparing the planet for possible invasion. He trained volunteers in basic survival skills. He helped build shelters and emergency supply caches. He did everything he could to protect the people who had no way to protect themselves. Laura worked in her healing center day and night. Human soldiers were being brought to now, wounded in the battles that raged across space. They healed them. They used their gifts to mend broken bones and torn flesh and shattered minds. One soldier, a young woman named Jinnah, had lost her arm in battle. Laura could not regrow the limb, but she could ease the pain and heal the wound and help the woman accept what had happened. Why are you doing this? Jinnah asked as Laura worked on her. Why are you being so kind to us? We came here to fight for you. You owe us nothing. Laura smiled gently. You came here to die for us, she said. How could I not be kind? Jinnah stared at her for a long moment. Then she began to cry, not from pain but from something else, something she could not name. We will win this war, she said through her tears. I promise you, we will win. Laura's brother, Ren, had begun documenting everything. He was a scholar, trained to observe and record. He followed the human soldiers with a recording device, capturing their rituals and their songs and their conversations. He watched them gather before battles, touching photographs of loved ones, speaking names like prayers. He watched them return from battles, carrying wounded comrades, mourning fallen friends. He watched them grieve and celebrate and hope and fear. They feel everything so deeply, he told Elder. Every emotion is extreme. Every connection is powerful. It is overwhelming to observe. Perhaps that is their strength, Elder said thoughtfully. Perhaps feeling deeply is what allows them to fight so fiercely. Far away, Warlord was losing patience. His empire was bleeding. His soldiers were demoralized. His supply lines were collapsing. A species he had dismissed as children was making him look like a fool. Enough games, he declared. We end this now. Send the full fleet too. We will destroy the human forces and burn the world to ash. If I cannot have those healers, no one will. General bowed his head. As you command, my lord. But as he turned to leave, felt something he had never felt before in his long military career: doubt. These humans were unlike any enemy that had ever faced. They were unpredictable. They were relentless. They were fighting not for territory or resources or power, but for something intangible, something he could not understand. They were fighting for kindness. And that, he was beginning to realize, might make them impossible to defeat. The final battle was approaching. The fate of and perhaps the entire galaxy hung in the balance. On Earth, Admiral Park gave the order to mobilize everything. Every ship, every soldier, every resource. This would be humanity's defining moment. We go too, she announced, and we bring the wolves of Earth with us. The fleet arrived at like a dark cloud swallowing the stars. 800 warships, arranged in perfect formation, blocking the light from the sun. Warlord stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Conqueror, and looked down at the small blue planet below. Such a gentle world, he said. Such weak people. It is almost sad that they will burn. General stood beside him, watching the tactical displays. The human fleet had not yet arrived. Perhaps they had given up. Perhaps they had realized that victory was impossible. Then the sensors screamed. Ships appeared from hyperspace in a ring around the formation. Not 200 ships, not 300. The human fleet had grown. Reinforcements from every corner of Earth's territory had arrived. Civilian ships converted for war. Old vessels pulled from retirement. New ships rushed out of shipyards before their paint had dried. 400 human vessels faced 800 warships. The odds were still terrible, but the humans had come anyway. Admiral Park's voice broadcast across all frequencies. Warlord, this is your only warning. Withdraw from space immediately. Do this, and we will allow you to leave. Stay, and we will destroy you. Laughed. You are outnumbered 2-1, human. Your courage is admirable, but your mathematics is poor. You are correct about the numbers, replied, but you have miscounted one thing. What is that? Heart. The battle began. Captain Minu led the first strike force directly at the center. His ships were fast and maneuverable, darting between the larger enemy vessels, hitting weak points and disappearing before they could respond. Stay tight, Minu ordered his pilots. Watch your wingmen. No one dies alone today. Around him, space became chaos. Explosions lit the darkness. Ships burned and tumbled. The void filled with debris and bodies and screaming metal. Watched from the surface of, unable to look away. The battle above was like a storm of fire and light. He could see human ships charging into formations that should have destroyed them. He could see explosions that marked the death of friends and enemies alike. Laura stood beside him, her hand gripping his arm. Her whole body was shaking. They are dying for us, she whispered. So many of them are dying. Yes, said, his voice was thick. They are. Why? How can they do this? How can they sacrifice so much for strangers? Thought about the question. He thought about Earth and its history, a species that had fought countless wars among itself, a species that had learned again and again that some things were worth dying for. Because you showed us something, he said finally. You showed us that kindness still exists. You showed us that there is goodness worth protecting. And once we believe in something, we do not let go. In space, the battle raged for hours. The human fleet was taking heavy losses. Ship after ship fell to weapons, but for every human vessel destroyed, 3 ships went with it. The humans were not trying to survive. They were trying to win. On the Conqueror, Warlord watched his fleet being torn apart. This was not supposed to happen. The humans were supposed to break. They were supposed to run. "Why do they not retreat?" he demanded. "We are killing them. Why do they keep coming?" General shook his head. "I told you, my lord, these creatures do not fight like we do. They do not calculate victory. They fight for belief." "Belief in what?" "In each other. In something they call honor." Paused. "I do not fully understand it, but I fear it may be their greatest weapon." Minyu's ship was damaged now. Half his systems were offline. His hull was breached in 3 places. But he was still flying, still fighting, still pushing toward the Conqueror. "All remaining ships form up on me," he ordered. "We are going for the flagship." "Captain, that is suicide," one of his officers protested. "Maybe, but if we take out this war is over. They will lose their leader. They will fall into chaos. We'll be safe." He paused. "I did not come here to survive. I came here to win." 30 human ships followed him toward the Conqueror. They punched through the defensive line, taking terrible losses. By the time they reached the flagship, only 12 ships remained. Minyu launched boarding pods. His soldiers crashed through the Conqueror's hull and began fighting their way to the bridge. They were outnumbered but they did not stop. They pushed forward through corridors filled with enemy soldiers, leaving bodies behind them with every step. Minyu led from the front. He took a wound to his shoulder, then another to his leg. He kept moving. His blood left a trail on the metal floor, but he did not slow down. The bridge doors were sealed. Minyu placed explosives and blew them open. He walked through the smoke and fire and faced Warlord. The Warlord drew his weapon. His face was twisted with rage and disbelief. "You have doomed your species," snarled. "For what? For them, they are nothing. They have no power. They have no value." Minyu raised his own weapon. His hands were steady despite his wounds. "They are not nothing," he said. "They are kind. They help strangers without asking for anything in return. They showed us that goodness exists in this cold universe." He took a breath. "And apparently that is something your empire never understood." He pulled the trigger. Fell. The warlord of the empire died on the floor of his own bridge, killed by a wounded human who should have been dead hours ago. Minyu transmitted a final message to the human fleet. "Target destroyed. The warlord is dead." Then he collapsed. Outside, the fleet faltered. News of death spread from ship to ship. Without their leader, without their command structure, they began to break. Some ships fled. Others surrendered. The great empire that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries was crumbling. Admiral Park gave the final order. "All ships cease fire. Let them run. Let them tell the galaxy what happened here today." The battle was over. Laura ran to the medical center. The wounded were being brought down from orbit now. Human soldiers, broken and bleeding, carried by their comrades. She worked without rest, healing wound after wound, using every ounce of her ability to save the people who had sacrificed everything for her world. Found her hours later, when the last patient had been treated. She was sitting on the floor, exhausted beyond words, her blue hands stained with human blood. "You saved them," he said, "just like you saved me." Laura looked up at him. Her eyes were red from crying. "Not all of them," she whispered. "I could not save all of them." "You saved enough. You saved everyone you could. That is all any of us can do." Minyu survived. The healers worked on him for 3 days straight. His wounds were severe, but Laura refused to let him die. She said he was the human who had killed the monster. She said he deserved to live. When Minyu finally woke, the first thing he saw was Laura's face. "Thank you," he whispered. Laura smiled. It was the same gentle smile she had given on that frozen moon years ago. "I did not save you for thanks," she said. "I saved you because you were dying. This is what my people do. This is what you taught the galaxy to value." Minyu closed his eyes. A tear ran down his face. "Then maybe all of this was worth it," he said. "Maybe the price was fair." The price had been high. 163 human ships had been destroyed. Thousands of soldiers had died. Families on Earth would grieve for years. But was safe, they would live, and the galaxy had learned something new about humanity. They had learned that humans keep their promises. They had learned that humans fight for what they believe in. And they had learned that if you show kindness to humanity, they will burn across the stars to protect you.